G'day everyone, Jason here. My artist name is Kersy, and this is part 8 of a series of videos that I'm doing on how I create and produce songs from scratch. In this video, I'm going to show you how I wrote the lyrics for the song and provided them to a fantastic vocalist called Christine, and then took that vocal performance and integrated it into the song. Since this is the 8th video on this topic, it might be worth you checking out some of the other videos I created where you can see the step-by-step process I used to create the original chords, the structure of the song, the piano, the synthesizers, guitar, bass, drums, everything. So go check that out, and if you haven't already, and then come back here and I'll show you how I do the vocals. And if you like what I'm doing with these videos, please do me a favor, bless the YouTube algorithm by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. So let's talk about the vocals. Since I'm an instrumentalist first and a vocalist second, I composed and recorded all of the instrumental tracks first before I started to think about doing the vocals. That's just the way I chose to go about it for this song, but there are so many ways you can go about writing songs. If you've watched the recent Beatles documentary called Get Back, that's a fantastic insight into different songwriting processes. But as a solo artist and producer, I don't have the opportunity to collaborate with other musicians in the same way that most bands do. I have to work through it step by step with each instrument, iterating and improving until I get the final result. But in a band, of course, you can pretty much do that in real time. When it comes to the vocals for this song, I had no preconceived idea of what the lyrics were going to be, or the melody, or any of it. In fact, I didn't even have a name for the song. I just called it Cheesecake. Because why not? I mean, who doesn't like cheesecake? So now I have a question for you, and it's not about cheesecake. If you were to write a song, would you start with the vocals and the lyrics, or would you start with the music? Please put your comments below, and I will go through everyone's responses and come up with another video with the results. Okay, so I've got the instrumental done, and now it's time for the lyrics. So how did I come up with the lyrics? I was on a flight to Memphis and was sitting back in my seat and using that time to start to think about what lyrics I wanted for the song. And I pulled out my phone and started using the Notes app to type in some ideas for lyrics. Since I was on a plane at that time, I drew inspiration from that environment and then compared it to a fictitious relationship. And that fiction was loosely based on a bunch of exaggerated experiences from past relationships. So the theme was about being sky high, which is an elated state in a relationship. But of course, I was physically 25,000 feet in the air, so I was sky high. But just writing lyrics about being happy and elated in a relationship is a little bit boring. So I wanted to add some drama to it. So I thought about the beginning of a relationship where there's always a little bit more tension and wondering about what the other person is thinking and where the relationship's going. So I sat back in the seat of the plane and started to write down a bunch of bullet points of this kind of story of the beginning of a relationship and of how you feel sort of sky high, feel really good when you're together, but when you're apart, you're not quite sure what the other person's thinking. And then with that random list of bullet points that I created, I can then massage them into phrases that I can use for verses and chorus. When I got back to my home studio a few days later, I started to look at those lyrics and ideas and start to pull them together into a final set of lyrics. If I get stuck on ideas for words, I go to rhymezone.com or thesaurus.com, dictionary.com, places like that to get ideas. So once I finished the lyrics, what about the melody? Well, I decided not to write the melody for this song. In fact, I took the lyrics that I wrote and gave them to a female vocalist and asked her to come up with the melody that inspires her. In fact, I sent the music and the lyrics to 2 vocalists just to see what each would come back with. What they came back with was quite different. So let's take a look at one phrase from one of the verses so you can see the difference. Here's the first vocalist.
Did I not read the signs that you showed me?
And the second vocalist.
Did I not read the signs that you showed me?
So after listening to the full vocal tracks of both of those singers, I decided to go with the second one that you heard. Her name is Christine, and integrate that into my song. So Christine sent me the lead vocals, a double, some harmonies, and some ad-lib vocals that I could scatter throughout the song to add some color and texture where needed. Let's take a look at some of those vocal tracks without any effects or processing.
Yeah, you lift me up, sky. You send me sky. Yeah, you lift me up, sky.
Now she's got a great voice, and I don't really see any need to do any pitch correction or auto-tune, and I do prefer a more natural response rather than clamping the vocals to a certain pitch. But the vocals do need some processing, so let me talk to you about some of the processing that I added to the vocals. I added a saturator from Ableton to add about 4 dB of gain and also introduce some warmth and harmonics. Next in the effects chain, I added a Waves CLA 76 classic compressor with 4:1 compression. And then I added another Waves MV2 high and low compressor. After that, I added an Ableton EQ so I could cut some of the low frequencies and boost the high frequencies by about 3 to 4 dB. Following that, I used a de-esser to get rid of those S's, and I used the Waves R de-esser to do that. After that, I added a quarter and half note stereo delay. And finally, in the last part of the effects chain, I added a stereo reverb with a 238 millisecond pre-delay and a 1.5 second decay. So that's the vocal effects chain, but I also had to think about panning and volume automation. I kept the lead vocals in the center of the mix, and I sent some of the harmonies to the left and some of the harmonies a little to the right. And then, of course, added some volume automation at different parts of the song to help bring the vocals up in the mix. Let's take a listen now to the vocals with and without all of that processing.
Yeah, you lift me up, sky. You send me sky. Yeah, you lift me up, sky. Yeah, you lift me up, sky. You send me sky. Yeah, you lift me up, sky.
The next thing I did was work on the ad-lib vocals. This is the ear candy that's good to play around with to add different parts of the song to add some texture and some dynamics to the overall feel. As an example, in the introduction to the song, I sampled the words, "I'm up in the clouds,"
I'm up in the clouds.
and I doubled it across 2 tracks, panning one 40% to the left and the other one 40% to the right. And then I used an EQ to kind of band limit the vocals between about 200 hertz and 2 kilohertz to give that sort of telephone-like old school quality to vocals. And this is how that sounds.
I'm up in the clouds.
So after a lot of moving things around and tweaking the effects and the levels and the processing, this is what I came up with. So let's listen to it now with the vocals just by themselves and then with the rest of the music.
When I'm with you, I know that it's true. I know that it's true. It's in the way you move, yeah, and the things that you do. Now I when I'm with you, I know that it's true. It's in the way you move, and the things that you do. Now I
There is a lot of time and energy that can go into writing, recording, and producing songs, but I love it. Well, the song is getting close to being done now, and the only thing I need to do is work on improving the final mix. It's also important for me to listen to the song on a variety of different devices, play it in the car, use headphones, use my earbuds, play it just on my phone without any speakers, in different environments, because then listening to the mix in those different environments is going to really help figure out if there's any other final changes that need to be made to the EQ to the instrumentation, and to the levels in the mix. So that'll give me my rough mix, but my rough mix is not what I'm going to release. I highly recommend that you send your music to somebody else to do the final mixing and mastering. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've made it this far, don't forget to put something in the comments about how you go about writing your songs, whether you prefer to write the vocals and the lyrics first or do the music. And I'll send the results through in a subsequent video.